What song does that sound like? Do you know? Put it in the comments below. And I will do a video on it later because it's really a great song to work on and get some good open position chords on. But the title of today's video is, I wrote it down here, Beginner Guitar Players, Make Sure You Do This. Okay, and the reason I'm talking about this today is because, well, here's a little story, okay? Yesterday I was teaching and I was in my last lesson and I had a phone call come in and I didn't know who it was and they left a message. And then I picked it up afterward and come to find out, a lady said to me, hey, I got your name from a couple of people that you know and they recommended you as a guitar teacher. And she said that her son has been out of school for 2 months. I wonder why. And he's going crazy. He's 12 years old. He's got an acoustic guitar, he's got an electric guitar, and he hasn't had a lesson for a couple of months. Well, she said he's got to have a lesson. You know, he's just got to have one. He's going to leave in 3 weeks and go to his dad's house for the summer. So she says, you know, his regular guitar teacher isn't going to start teaching again until June, and he's going to be gone by then. So can you help us? Then I asked, well, where are you? And she said, well, we're right here in Fruitland. And I said, oh, I just got done with a lesson in Fruitland. I'm over at the store. I'm going to buy something. And when do you want to start lessons? And she said, well, as soon as possible. And I said, how about now? And she said, okay. And so I told her I'd be there in 30 minutes. So after I went to the store, I went over to their house and met this new student of mine. Well, you know what? He's actually a pretty good little guitar player. When I say little guitar player, he's not that little, but I didn't start until I was 12 years old, and so he's a lot better than I was. I didn't know anything about bar chords until I was almost 14 years old, and he can start to do bar chords now, power chords and stuff like that. So anyway, I was showing him some stuff, and we were talking about some things, and he was showing me some of the songs that he was working on, and he was working on Fade to Black, Metallica. I'm cleaning up my room right now because I'm going to be doing some lessons right here, and I need to move this keyboard out of here so I can set up what I need to do. So anyway, he was showing me what he could do with Fade to Black, and I noticed that some of his bar chords weren't that great. And I thought to myself, of course, I wonder what's going on with that. So I was talking to him about positioning, about putting his guitar in a certain position, you know, and his elbow and tucking his elbow and different things like that. And it was okay, but then I said to him, here, let me check your guitar out. And I handed him my guitar, you know, here's my guitar, let me have your guitar. So I took his guitar and I started playing it and doing the bar chords like we were talking about. Well, I found out really quick that there was something wrong with his guitar, that actually the height of the strings off of the neck, which is also called the action, right? When you set the action properly, it's the height of the strings to the neck. Well, it wasn't done very well. And the reason is because on the nut of his guitar, which is this part right here, it hadn't been set up properly. The grooves were, the strings were almost to the top of the nut. So what happens is that when you're playing, especially when you're playing your F bar chord, like that, the one that goes right there, it makes it very difficult to play that chord when the strings are so high off of the neck. So I told him, you know what I'll do is I'll bring my nut files next time and we'll adjust the nut on your guitar. So this is what I want to tell you today. As a new guitar player, you need to make sure that your guitar is set up properly. Your strings need to not be too high off the neck. Your nut needs to be set up properly. And if you're having trouble with your chords, it may not be your fault. It may be your guitar's fault. I've had all my guitars set up so that they're just optimized for my playing and my style of playing. You need to do that. There was one more guitar that a student of mine brought over. He said, he bought it at the store, and I started playing it, and the same thing, the nut was not set up. So next week when he comes, we're going to set up his nut. That's called the nut. Okay, so it's got to be there, otherwise that F bar chord is not going to work very well. And some of your open position chords, most of them, they're not going to be really easy to play. They're going to be difficult to play. So that's what we need to do. You need to make sure that your guitar is set up perfectly, as well as you can get it. And that's one thing I like about real lessons, in-home lessons, like I go to the home or they come to me, is because I can grab their guitar, I can play it and see if there's anything wrong with it. When we are doing a lesson or you're watching a video or something, there's no way that I can tell if your guitar is set up properly. There's no way. Unless you, put the guitar right up to, where's my focus? Unless you get it really close and show me exactly how far those strings are off the neck. Now, what happens is that to be able to check this, if you put your finger on the 3rd fret, like this, just put your finger there, and then you push down on the string till it hits the 1st fret. And if there's a lot of play, a lot of movement in that, I want to see about a 64th of an inch. Barely any movement at all, maybe even farther than that, closer. But every guitar is a little different, so you can't just say, well, this is what Hal said. It needs to be this close. It's all depends on the guitar. It depends on the relief of the neck. If you've got a pretty straight neck or if you've got some bow in it. It depends also on the saddle and how high the saddle is, and that's got to be set up. So the best thing to do when you get a new guitar, first thing to do, you get the strings taken off, you put on new strings, you get it set up properly, and then away you go. And if it's set up really well, even if it's an inexpensive guitar, I've got a Yamaha guitar that I bought for under $200 that I've had for years. You've seen me play it, my Yamaha Telecaster sort of copy thing. And it's a great guitar, I love it. It's got a nice straight neck on it. It's not like a Gibson or a Fender or something like that, but it feels really good. I love the guitar, it plays really well, it sounds really good. Also, I've got a bass guitar that actually somebody gave me. And I talked to a friend of mine who owned a guitar shop, and I said, I want to get a really good bass. He said to me, what have you got? And I showed him, and I said, here, this is what I've got. It's an Ibanez bass. I love Ibanez guitars. My classical guitar is an Ibanez guitar. But this was just an inexpensive Ibanez bass. It was probably under $200 retail. He said, well, I can fix that guitar for you if you want. You don't have to spend $1,000 or $2,000 on a new bass. And so I had him set it up for me. It cost me like $80. And the bass plays just beautifully. It's just like butter. Now you can always replace the pickups if you want to. You can replace the nut, get a nice nut put on, bone nut or something like that. Bone is really wonderful. You can, of course, get new strings on it. You can replace like the knobs and stuff like that if you don't like the knobs. You can do a lot of things. You can replace the tuners. I've done that before on my guitars, on a couple of guitars. When the tuners wear out, or if you get a guitar and the tuners are not that great, you can get new tuners. So customize your guitar, get it set up properly, and let's get playing.